here. This presentation sort of goes over both athletes, coaches. We've got the event managers here at all? No, I might skip over that one. But if you want me to go deeper into anything, then please let me know. Some of the topics I just want to cover is just who we are and our background and our clients and that sort of thing. I've looked after Triathlon Australia's insurance for the last 12 years or so, but we look after a number of other sporting organisations. Just going to the cover, there's some documentation that's been handed out, just the summary of cover. The insurance program's a national program that falls due 30 June, covers all the states and territories. We've only just had to, some of you may be aware, we had to extend the liability policy from 30 June to 30 September. I don't know whether that's caused any angst. It did for us. So certificates of currency, am I talking gibberish here at all? Certificates of currency that were recently issued to you would have gone from June to September. I do apologise for that. What's occurred is we've had a long-term insurer called XL Catlin, they're a Lloyd's underwriting organisation. They stopped, they didn't want to write the triathlon program because we've had too many liability claims, so we had to find another one. We've just engaged with Liberty, that came about today. So you'll get a new certificate of currency which will go from 30 September 18 to 30 June 2019. It's just what we have to do because of the claims, and sports insurance is not every insurance company's appetite, so we've got a very limited sort of market to go to. And when you've had claims, it gets even smaller and smaller. If you've got cycling in your activity, we look after a number of cycling organisations. Insurance companies have been heavily burnt with cycling claims, so the number of insurers interested in those sorts of sport just diminish all the time. So, so I do apologise for that certificate of currency thing. I won't go through it. There's a few things there. I just want to go into the cover, and if you want to hone in on liability and coaches and your cover and PI and all that sort of stuff, I'm happy to sort of answer questions. And if you've got any concerns with claims, I do show you the claims. At the end of the day, the insurance program for Triathlon Australia is quite significant. You know, there's a total cost of insurance of about $500,000 that's paid to the insurance companies on an annualised basis. In claims, there's about $250,000 worth of personal accident claims a year. There's probably about $300,000 to $400,000 worth of liability claims paid out every year. So the insurance companies aren't making money. At the end of the day, I don't really care because I'm an insurance broker. I don't care about the insurance companies. I'm working here for you. But it sort of shows you, where your money's going and what's happening at the end of the day. So, there has been some, unfortunately, big claims. You'll see a couple of names, Willis Towers Watson and V Insurance. We're a part of Willis Towers Watson from the viewpoint we're an authorised rep of Willis Towers Watson. I've been involved in sports insurance for a long time, started very young, so I've been involved in about 30 years. But Willis Towers Watson's got a big office here, I think they're called CKA Willis, in William Street. But we've got offices all over the place. In Australia, they're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So we're an insurance broker. The main takeaway from that is that we're acting in your best interest. So we're not the insurance company paying the claims. So when you're talking to us and my staff, we're here to help you. So you ring us up and tell us how it is, and we'll try and find a solution for you. The insurance is, as I was saying before, we're the specialist division of Willis Towers Watson in Australasia, and we look after all these sorts of sporting clients. So we've got clients like Athletics Australia and basketball, and we're massively into scuba diving. Netball Australia at 7 o'clock in Sydney this morning, we're running a risk management seminar. So harness racing, kiteboarding, all sorts of different clientele. So pretty good idea of what's going on. This is just sort of a summary of the insurance covers. It's a little technical, but it's tried to make it diagrammatic. It's on the Triathlon Australia website. I don't know if everyone's seen it. So what we're trying to show is there's different categories of member, and as a result of that, we've had to sort of come with different insurance cover for each category of member. One, because of the risk. Two, because of what they pay. And also probably just a commercial sort of side of things that Triathlon Australia's if you're a one-day member, they try and influence you to become a full-blown member, and when you become a full-blown member, you get extra insurance cover. So that's why you'll see some have got these abbreviations here. PA is personal accident, PL is public liability, AL is sometimes called ML, just to confuse you, but it's association liability, it's directors and officers liability. You guys that sit on committees in clubland can be held accountable for your decisions. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of claims in that space, not in triathlon world, but in all the other sports that we look after. Claims like bullying, wrongful dismissal of coaches, molestation, those sorts of things all fall under this association liability insurance. So hopefully that makes sense. It is on the website as well. This is probably the nuts and bolts of it from the viewpoint of the covers that are in place. So there's really 5 policies. Public and product liability, they're combined together. Also with professional indemnity, that's the important one for those that are coaches. So if you're held accountable for your coaching, touch wood, we haven't had a PI claim for a triathlon coach. We certainly have them for Athletics Australia. We look after Baseball Australia. We've got a couple going for Baseball Australia. So there's circumstances where athletes get injured through your coaching techniques. I don't say your coaching techniques, but through coaching techniques. And as a result of that, they've sustained bodily injury, then they want to sue for compensation. So, the baseball one I've dealing with is where it's a junior state team in New South Wales. Mum said to coach, Johnny's got a sore knee. Can you be mindful of that when you're doing the training, that sort of thing? She dropped off Johnny and went to the shops like mums do in Sydney, and came back and they actually got beaten by another state game, They're doing burpees as a part of their training and punishment. He's doing it, he's a catcher, his knee's blown out, never really played again, so he's successfully suing the coach, and I'm going to say successfully, he's in the throes of it. It'll just be a commercial.
No place for burpees.
Be fun?
Yeah, no place for burpees.
No, exactly. It's a shock. So anyway, that's what you can be held accountable for. We've even had claims in Cycling Australia and Athletics Australia for non-selection, which has come down to coaches and selection, that sort of stuff. So that falls under this professional indemnity side of things. So we've had allegations of incorrect training, which has got drugs component to it all, particularly at the Olympic level. So it covers all that malarkey, all those horrible things that go on. So, touch wood, triathlon hasn't had a claim, so which is great. So, personal accidents where there is all the big claims. We were talking about before with the deaths. Obviously, they do occur, and it's interesting. I was just saying to Frank before that in the early days when I was involved, you had a lot of cycling accidents. It was just it was causing all sorts of premiums going up. Insurers were just dropping off, and then about 2 or 3 years ago, and I'll show you the results, we had about 3 or 4 swimming deaths all in one hit. And it's interesting, as much as I've done a couple of triathlons, I'm not doing regularly now, what's occurring, there's a lot of people doing triathlons, they're one-day members, and it's an experience. I'm going to do it for the weekend, and then I'm going to go, sailing the next weekend. A couple of people that passed away weren't fit enough to do a triathlon, so it's an interesting position. One of them in the coroner's report said they were morbidly obese, so it's a challenge for race directors, if that's a terminology. I've had many conversations with Triathlon Australia as to how you manage that. If there's somebody lined up and they don't look fit, you're in a bit of strife if you say, sorry, Freddie, you're not going to compete because we don't think you're fit enough. You're going to end up with discrimination case against you. So, but it's, I'm just making you aware of it. We have had a couple of times.
Isn't that why for most people, what about the waiver? Isn't that what athletes sign to protect the event from exactly doing that?
Yep. So it's a very good point. Waivers, some people say waivers don't hold, water and that sort of stuff. They do. They change from state to state. WA, you've got your, it's a recreational, there's a legal term for it, but if you knowingly are involved in an activity with inherent risk and you've acknowledged that and you've signed off on it, it's in your language and you do understand it, it is successful in court to use that. So, but it's not in every state. Every state's got a different recreational activity law or act or something. So yeah. But it's still one of those things that, as a coach, as you were saying before, you've got a duty to address your athletes and have a look at them if they're fit to do things or they're not up to it or they're not. You've got to make that decision yourself. So, that's where we're sort of getting at the current junction, and we are seeing those that have been around a long time. If you go back 2000 when insurance land changed, the whole landscape changed in Australia when FAI and HAH fell over, and there was a lot of insurance that came out in the insurance marketplace, and the cost of insurance just went up by about 400%. I don't know if anybody was around at that particular time. It was really hard to get insurance back in 2000. The government's then changed a lot of the laws, how you can sue for activities with inherent risk. They've outlawed the ambulance chasing lawyers. Do we have any lawyers? I didn't ask that question. Everybody else. Do we have any lawyers? They all got out. They're all coming back into it. I don't know whether you see the no-win, no-fee lawyers that are out there now. They're all coming back into it. So liability claims are going up. What does that mean? Insurance premiums will go up and all the rest of it. So it's interesting. I reckon there'll be another change. The government's going to come in at some stage, because if you track the claims over the last 18 years since 2000, they're starting to go like this, because those no-fee, Slater and Gordon, and a couple of others are just going very hard. So association liability is that one where I've seen before, covers you. It's the better known in corporate land as directors and officers liability, D&O insurance. Unfortunately, in sports land, wrongful dismissal, bullying, harassment, those sorts of claims are occurring every week. Wouldn't be a week go by with all the sports that we've got, but we're not helping our clients out with those sorts of situations. So it's something just to be mindful of if you're sitting on committees and your obligations under the Bullying Act, the Privacy Act, all those sorts of things. You've got to be very careful, because you can be held personally liable. It is picked up under this insurance, but that doesn't mean that you just do what you want to do. Cyber liability, pretty new wave sort of insurance policy out there these days. We've had a few claims in for large national sporting bodies that have been hacked into, been extorted, have their servers compromised and that sort of stuff. So these policies embrace all in clubland, because you obviously come from clubland, so if you've got issues in that space, best to call us and we can get any experts to help with things. And travel insurance is an addition to your standard Triathlon Australia membership. You contact Triathlon Australia, because they can't sell insurance, we call it an international licence, which includes travel insurance. So it's the best way to buy travel insurance if you are going overseas. The elite athletes, if that's the right term, get it automatically, but anybody can tap into it, and don't ask me the cost, but I think it's under $100, and it's Rolls-Royce travel insurance, but it also covers you if you're participating in training, that sort of stuff. So your off-the-shelf travel insurance and online travel insurance wouldn't cover you for injuries and cancellation costs if you get injured whilst training and competing, that sort of thing. So,
yeah, a lot of the other travel insurance, they'll cover you in a running race, but not when you're on a bike. So you've got to be really careful with your travel insurance to make sure that it does include bike race.
Anything with a lot of the policies, the online ones that are really cheap, will exclude racing. And if you're a professional and there's prize money that you're competing in, they'll exclude you from all those sorts of things. So there's been some big claims for travel, particularly for your elite guys that get injured and need medical treatment overseas.
So when would a athlete use that type of thing if they're going to go and compete overseas?
Okay. So personal accidents, it's a worldwide policy, but it's got limitations on the limits for medical cover. It's more akin to the fact that you've got Medicare cover and private health insurance in Australia. When you go overseas, that doesn't apply. So the medical cover under the travel insurance, I don't know whether I gave the travel summary, I think it's unlimited. So if you're competing in the US and that sort of thing, we've had claims for other sports for $220,000 and that sort of thing. They rack it up pretty quickly. So
is that already included, or then you buy that?
That's additional. So they call it an international licence that you would need to buy an international upgrade. I think it's
I used it when I went to Chattanooga.
Triathlon Australia gives
Yeah.
it as an option
Yeah.
when you join
My
the
personal
team there.
insurance
Yeah.
didn't cover some of the stuff, but that one covered a lot more.
So you
it was
get that
just
socially, you haven't ticked it? You just ring up and say, hey, I've got a race on the side.
I just ring up.
Yes, you can. Yes.
Purchase it as an
So
add-on.
if you're travelling overseas
Yes.
to a race, then you need to contact TA. There's actually information on the TA website under the insurance, and it will show you how to apply for the international cover.
If you're an official in the room and you're on a TA assignment, that's an international TA assignment overseas, you're also that you have to apply for it through Andy or Lucas, and you're covered for that. It's free. You have to apply, and it's free once they approve it.
Is that an international?
If you're doing it as part of a holiday, it wouldn't be covered. But if you are selected by ITU or by Ironman to go to an international event, you will be.
Certainly is the best way to get travel insurance if you're competing in a triathlon, because as I keep saying, otherwise you'd have to vet the policies online or through Harvey World Travels or with all respect to them. They won't include racing and that sort of stuff. So
What if you're not competing in just, I don't know, cycling up some French Alps,
yep.
How you do?
As
as I do?
would this insurance cover you, or would the online?
Yeah, your online stuff. Oh yeah, international. I realise the home one wouldn't, but so if I wasn't racing,
Yep.
but I was riding a bicycle overseas, would it be worth getting the international add-on?
Or would you be entitled to?
Because this is more akin to being involved in a triathlon and training for and that sort of thing. So
Okay.
it's that little grey line.
So climbing afterwards is not considered training for a triathlon?
Yeah, it could be.
It's during the triathlon.
Yeah. So this doesn't say you've got to be, it's only covering you for medical treatment, because travel insurance, as you know, will cover you from the time you buy it today. You've bought a $15,000, $20,000 trip overseas, and you get injured before you leave the shores of Australia, and you can't go, that's travel insurance. Now, some travel insurance, because you got injured whilst competing in a Triathlon Australia, they may not pay that claim, whereas this would. Then you go, let's say you do go overseas and you get injured whilst you're training, some may not pay that, this one would. You know, if you get involved in a race and you fall off or you get injured or whatever, it's not only that, it also covers if you just get crook because you need to go to the doctor because you've got some ailment. It covers all those sorts of things, but what makes this different is it covers you whilst racing or competing or training. So, yeah. Do you have to do when you get a claim? Do they say what you're actually training for? No, they don't. You know, so you could use this policy for riding around the French Alps or whatever you do.
Altitude training.
Public liability covers all those different bodies, so I won't go into it, but it picks up everybody that's involved in the activity of triathlon, from volunteers to officials to the competitors to the coaches and all the rest of it. They're the limits and the excesses. Unfortunately, there is a bit of an excess, so it's $750. The thought process behind that is, as I said before, we do a lot of cycling stuff. It's essentially trying to get rid of the claims for cyclists hitting cars, because we were having a lot of claims for cyclists taking off side mirrors, and actually had a claim one day when I was sitting in the office late at night and got a call. Someone actually went straight through the back window of a car in Elizabeth Street in Sydney that was a triathlete. So he looked through the car, stopped very quickly, bike didn't, and went straight through the back windscreen, which I thought he must have been going pretty hard to break that. But
One of our boys did that here a few years ago.
big pardon?
One of our local boys did that here a few years
Is that
ago.
right? Yeah. So anyway, it picks up. That's why there is an excess, so it's not going to cover the scratches that you put on a car, or there is an excess on things. The $1,000 one is if a club is involved in a liability claim. We have had some chunky claims. We've got one going at the moment where a para-athlete hit an able-bodied athlete from behind. I hope this one's not too close to home because it's very fresh. Hasn't been litigated yet, but it's a doctor that was running along, got collected by the para from behind, sustained injuries and that sort of thing. So that's a public liability claim. We've had a person walk across the cycling leg down at Geelong and that's a $200,000 claim. So the public liability claims do occur, unfortunately. So when the premium for the liability, and it just renewed it today, is about $100,000, and when you get a $200,000 claim, obviously the insurance company's not making too much money. Policy worldwide, so if you do compete wherever you are in the world, if you have a situation where you could bring down another rider, we've had claims in the cycling league where it's one cyclist has done something and it's collided with another cyclist. That cyclist has sustained injuries, has sued this cyclist. We've had big claims in Australia, haven't had any overseas, so that's all picked up under public liability as well. This dovetails in with personal accident insurance. There's a little flyer there about how medical insurance fits under sports insurance. It's bloody confusing, to put it blunt, because this Medicare Act that we have in Australia, under the personal accident insurance we have covered what they call non-Medicare medical insurance. So I might just jump ahead because it's this bit here. So it's $3,000 for non-Medicare medical expenses for members, professional members and licence holders and coaches is $5,000. Where it gets really confusing, in Australia, there's the Medicare Act of 1952, I think it is, states that insurance companies can't pay any compensation for a medical cost which is covered by Medicare or the Medicare gap. So basically that means that this sports insurance, which all sports they can't pay for doctors, x-rays, anaesthetists, whatever the main one, and some MRIs. MRIs, you may know better than I do, that some MRI machines are covered by Medicare, some aren't. I've heard a different story as to why. What is not non-Medicare is akin to private health insurance, so it's physio, chiropractic, ambulance, private hospital, that sort of thing. So that's what non-Medicare medical insurance picks up. It doesn't cover those other things. So we get a lot of inquiries, complaints about that component to it also. If your athlete does have an injury and they've got to go see a doctor, it might cost $100 to go and see the doctor. They might get $50 or $60 back from Medicare. That differential, the $50 differential, is not covered by this because of this stupid Medicare Act. If they then go and see a physio, a chiro, an acupuncturist, a aromatherapist, all that sort of stuff, which is non-Medicare costs, if it's part of their rehab, that is picked up under this. So it gets confusing. It's probably get into, particularly in footy codes and that sort of stuff, is when you have knee reconstructions, when you have a reco, it could be shoulder or a knee or ankle. There's all these medical providers that are involved in the whole process, from a surgeon to an assistant surgeon to an anaesthetist and his assistant. Then you go to a private hospital. There's just so many different costs. So the best thing that we always say is go to the surgeon's receptionist and get them to split out what everyone's charging. They'll know what the rebate from Medicare is. Then you work out if there's Medicare cover, there's nothing covered under this insurance. If it's just the ongoing physio, it's probably going to be picked up in that circumstance. So it causes a bit of confusion, but it's just unfortunately the law that we've got to deal with. So there are a few components to personal accident insurance. There's a lump sum benefit, the $100,000 for death and permanent disability. There's $100,000 for quad and para. Last year, I lost track of time, but Lauren Parker had that accident. With Lauren Parker, there's actually a story coming out of QBE because they were the insurers for it. They were really heavily involved in her rehabilitation, so they've done a bit of a video on her story. That's where that lump sum benefit comes into it. I must admit, I'm a big advocate, having been involved in sports insurance for 30 years. That's when personal accidents, a lot of people get fixated on doctors' bills and physios and all this sort of stuff. But it's when you have a Lauren Parker circumstance, and as a sport, you're able to give her, I think it was about $125,000. Still not enough money, but it's still, to me, that's what insurance is all about, those major calamities, rather than trying to claim for loss of income because you've been off work for a month and all this sort of thing. So, so that's what that capital benefits or death and permanent disability benefits all about. There are all these other bits. There's loss of income cover. TA has made the benefits for professional athletes, the elites or whatever the terminology, they've got higher limits. So for bog standard member it's $400 per week loss of income, $700 for the professionals. There's some other bells and whistles here with student assistants and parenting convenience and all these other things, so I won't go into those. So it's been underwritten with QBE for about the last 5 or 6 years. We changed the words there, management liability. I said called it association liability just to confuse you. There's all the limits. I won't go through all those, but they're very high limits for to cover you guys when you're sitting on your committees if you're held accountable for your decisions and that sort of stuff. Travel insurance, touched on that. It's beefed up travel insurance with all the things that you normally get with excess car hire, waiver, reimbursement. Doesn't cover bikes. Bikes are covered up to, don't quote me, it's probably on there, $2,500.
Some people's wheels.
Yeah, exactly. The thought process with this is we used to have it at a higher amount. I think it was 10 grand when we first started out, and everybody's bike got damaged when it was in transit, and we were having a lot of claims. So TA said let's bring it down, and if people are concerned about their bikes, they can take out insurance with the various bodies around the place. So, yeah. So there's no pre-existing injury clause under that policy, so if there's heart conditions and all that sort of stuff, it's all picked up. It's not like you're off the shelf or online sort of policy. Cyber, I won't go to that, it's more akin to clubland. Cover for coaches, I've somewhat gone through that. Probably the topical thing or the area that you may be interested in is coming to put a rope around when you're covered as a TA coach, because I recognise that some of you may go off and do training of corporates and that sort of thing. The thought process behind this is to cover you whilst you're predominantly coaching triathletes. They don't have to be Triathlon Australia members or Triathlon WA members, because you may have some low-ends, but if you're essentially coaching triathletes, it covers you for all the training that you may do. The thought process is also, and I'm no expert on all the different categories of coaching that you have, do they go from 1 to 5? I know Athletics Australia does.
It's changing at the moment.
Is it?
Yeah. So.
Okay, I won't go into that. Technically you're covered up to the level that you're trained to. So, once again, I see a couple of emails that came in the other day where somebody's doing some oxygen testing and training and that sort of stuff. I don't know where that fits into the qualification of a TA coach. I ran this by Miles and Stuart in TA, and they said, well, if they're trained at that level, then that's fine. But if they're down at level 0 or 1, then they're not covered for those sorts of activities. So it's just having an understanding of that you're covered by insurance up to the level that you're accredited to. Does that make sense? Yeah. And does it cause angst? Because I know we get a lot of inquiries from coaches that are extending what they're doing to go into take corporate training, or they're doing their own sort of gym stuff and that sort of thing. The intention's not for this policy to pick that up, because obviously the more you expand it, the more potential for claims, will mean more cost of insurance. So if you're coaching triathletes, predominantly triathletes, you're picked up under this professional indemnity public liability policy.
So I was probably one of the people that emailed you about this, because novices aren't, if you like, members of the club.
Yep.
It's their first time. Are they triathletes? So if you run a course, then however it's come about, whether you've been approached by a local community or a school or a local authority, or however, or you advertise it yourself. This is the way we bring triathletes in from the cold.
Yep.
They're potential triathletes, potential members, but they aren't members of a club. They're not going to become a member of a club until they've done their first trial.
Thought process is to cover those guys. Certainly if you've got your club hat on as a coach, you're covered coaching whoever comes in there, and you're going to have come and try days and all that sort of thing. So they're all picked up. What we're trying to, and probably more driven by TA, is to exclude the triathlete coach that's going to go and teach the West Coast Eagles how to run, because there might be a great runner. The thought process is that stretching the boundaries of this insurance. But if West Coast Eagles want to do a triathlon, when I was playing footy, we did sort of triathlons, and you went out there and coached them in that, just as to bring in an expert. Obviously they're not going to compete in triathlons, but they may do that as their cross-training. That would be fine. There is a little bit of grey line, but the thought process is not to come into my office and say, righto, you're going to take our guys out into Hyde Park and do some fitness work with them, because that's not the intention of the policy. If you're doing that, you need a fitness trainer's liability insurance policy.
And is that then a constraint then at the underwriting level, or is this a constraint then that's applied by the association?
Bit of both. So the insurance company, when we go and, as the broker, and go and see these insurers, they say, well, what are these coaches doing? And it's the difficulty about triathlon. It's also Athletes Australia, and look after their insurance, is there's so much cross-training with your activity, and a lot of the coaches go and do other activities. There's general fitness work. So the insurance companies want to know when are we covering. If they're going to teach yoga as well as triathlon, we didn't sign up, or we didn't think that we're going to cover them whilst they're doing yoga training. But if you're doing weight training, if you're doing, I don't know, something else that's related to the whole training of being a TA coach, that's all picked up. Yeah, there is a little bit of greyness there, but the thought process is that you coach them to the level that you qualified, and that they're predominantly triathletes, but embrace, come tries and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Just as Rob was talking about, next month, when we're doing the rollout of the foundation course, there will be a coach's, probably Friday night, the 26th of October, where Graham Hill will come over and he will do a full, let's say, clarification of what is under the new Australian, beyond Australian Sports Commission, but what they define are the newer levels of the triathlon coaches. I mean, it's going forward. It's not affecting anybody who has a qualification at the moment, but it is clarifying what your scope of practice is as a coach at the different levels. And that's, I'll send out a flyer on that. But the last Friday in October is going to be.
Yeah, I think that sort of stuff, especially the strength and conditioning or the strength stuff, we don't really learn about it through our coaching accreditation at all. But I know a lot of us do have access to gyms. So just potentially that's not covered then. If we're taking someone in and teaching how to lift weights and that sort of stuff, unless we have an S&C accreditation and have our own insurance through that.
From my viewpoint, because I'm looking after your best interest, I understand that you're not just going to be running and swimming and cycling as part of triathlon. You're going to do strength work, you're going to do core work, you're going to do all sorts of other things. So,
but even if we haven't actually learnt that through,
I recognise where you come from. My viewpoint would be if there was a claim because someone's torn their bicep or done something through their weight training and they want to take action against you, you would be covered. Now, if Graham was here or Miles or someone, they might say, hang on, there is a part of the course 3 that you do strength and training or whatever it might be, you should be doing that before you do that part of the training. I don't know. My thoughts is I just understand you can't, cross-training is just a part of every sport these days. So many clients will get to all those other netballs and basketballs, and nothing to do when they're on the court. It's the stuff they're doing off court. But you've got to recognise that you can't do that all the time. There's wet days when you've got to do stuff indoors. You do go to gyms. But, yeah. I know it's a bit grey, but certainly from my viewpoint, we want to cover you when you're doing that sort of stuff. To me, that's just part of your activity. It's when you say, I'm going to take them abseiling because I just want to build up their confidence. That's stretching the boundaries a little bit too far. Yeah. We're running out of time, so I am going to skip through a few things. We haven't got the event managers here. There is a lot of documentation on the Triathlon Australia website. There's a link to an insurance website that we host. So there's the policy wording if you're a bit can't sleep and want to read the black and white. There's claim forms on there, summaries of covers and that sort of stuff. I would just, how to make a claim, it's all pretty stock standard. There's a claim form and sending it in to, there's a claims handling organisation that looks after personal accident claims. If you have liability claims or anything like that, it's probably best just to call us. I always just like to put up, to see, sometimes I delve a little bit deeper into this, but this just shows you the amount of claims that are being paid for personal accidents. So I know this is being videoed, but I'm not here to look after the insurance companies, but they're not making a lot of money out of your program for the dollars that is taken in as premium paid out as claims. But at the end of the day, that's what insurance is for, and from my viewpoint, looking after your members, you've had some significant injuries next to kins that have been left out of pocket and families that have been able to get a little bit of money to help with people passing away and that sort of thing. Next one's liability. You've had a couple of big chunky claims back here. We've had training ride, cycling, hit a pedestrian, went through a pedestrian crossing and cleaned up a little old lady. So that's what insurance is all about. So yeah. I won't go into all that, but as I think I mentioned before, from the viewpoint of claims across other sports, we are seeing an increase in litigation. Seeing molestation, unfortunately, isn't going away. Once again, touch wood, it hasn't impacted on triathlon, but on a lot of other sports it is. That's grooming. We've got a claim that I'm dealing with right now with a coach in one of the activities, one of the disciplines that you're involved in. So yeah, it's just being aware of all these things, unfortunately, with child protection things. Bullying and wrongful dismissal is massive at the moment. Probably close to home, coaches getting punted without following due process and that sort of thing, so we're getting quite a few claims, particularly as sport becomes more professional and there's money involved and that sort of thing. I reckon that might do us, because I know we've run out of time, but please contact myself or our office. Jess is just going to the account manager for Triathlon Australia, but please ring me. I'll leave my card here behind. We're based in Sydney, but we're available all the time, and as I keep saying, no matter what your question is, we're here to try and find a solution for you, not to say, let's go away, let's not cover it. I recognise you will be doing things as coaches outside of triathlon, so we can do individual liability policies for you if you're doing something bespoke to your operation. If you've got staff and they're then picked up, we can cover that under a liability policy as well. So, has anyone got any questions?
Yeah, about suing a coach. Where does an athlete's personal responsibility to look after themselves kick in? My coach plan said Tuesday, hill repeat, sprinting up hills. I knew I had a sore Achilles. I still did it. I'm 3 years down the pan. I've spent a lot of money. I still can't run. Yeah. I'm not going to sue him, but it was my responsibility. I rocked up that day. It was my choice to do it.
It's a good question. From the viewpoint of it's a legal question more than an insurance question. It all comes down to the statement of claim, what lawyers representing them. If that came into us, we've got to send it to the insurance company. The insurance company engages a lawyer. The lawyer's hopefully their first response is to deny the claim. It would then be up to that injured party to say that if they want to go further with it. It just comes down to the details and all the rest. But I acknowledge what you're saying. The insurance company is here to represent you, so they would try and mitigate that loss. Where it gets really messy is because they're your athlete, so you've now got an unhappy athlete, so it's managing that.
Don't worry, I don't see him anymore, that's not an issue.
Touch wood, we're not getting a lot of those claims, but I acknowledge where you're coming from. We've seen the frivolous claims when somebody didn't get picked in a national team, they blamed their coach because it was poor training techniques. Next gold medalist, and they get sponsorship and all that sort of stuff. So you get a few of those. So they're not easy to get up. They've got to show that there was poor training techniques and they were going to be a gold medalist and all that sort of stuff. So,
Don't worry about that. I was told first week I'd never win anything. And they're right so far.
Just from a coaching internationally, so we talked about athletes travelling and the insurance there. Are we covered to be coaching when they're overseas?
Yes.
And can we coach international athletes in the same case?
Yes. Yeah. So there's liability policies worldwide, so if you're coaching anywhere and you're sued anywhere, this policy will pick you up and you've got athletes that are coming in here, it doesn't matter, there's no restriction, they've got to be an Australian resident or a citizen or whatever. Thank you for the opportunity, guys, still appreciate it. Good to see you.